Good. Okay. All right, I'm going to call this meeting to order. We're starting this meeting. Today is August 2nd, 2022 at 3:17 p.m. Becky, could you do roll call for me?
Jack Scrogstad,
Here.
Tom Wilson, Daniel Allen, Casey Considine,
Present.
Gene Hudson.
Present. All right, just a note, Casey Considine is on Zoom. And the other three are present here. I don't see any visitors in the area. And if you guys got copies of the minutes, just need to approve those minutes from our last meeting from previous meeting, May 27th. If I have no objections, I will consider those to be approved. Next thing on the agenda is old business, which is UTV discussions, which then leads me into the new business of wanting to add some language to the current draft. And everyone had I sent everyone a copy of the email of a concern I had on this particular issue. And just to kind of rehash it in the public meeting here is when I was reaching out to a couple of cities that had UTV ordinances already, trying to get them to allow us. I just had this thought in my mind that what if Franklin Grove had a UTV ordinance and they're charging $20 for a fee, and then Lee County would recognize that, and so would Dixon. What would prevent everyone getting a UTV ordinance or a UTV registration through Franklin Grove and not get one through Dixon where it's much more expensive? And so I kind of came up with an idea. And the idea was that if you live in that particular municipality, in that jurisdiction, that you need to register with that jurisdiction or that municipality for UTV ordinance. So that's kind of like, I tried throwing it out there to the Public Safety Committee, and that's why they threw it back at me to throw it in front of you guys. So it was already in the committee, Public Safety, and they threw this question back to our committee to discuss. So with that idea out there, I have some language. I don't know if you guys want to talk about it real quick before I suggest a motion to add this language. Does anyone have any comments on what I was just presenting there or anything? Questions? Okay, then what I would suggest is that I would ask for somebody to make a motion if registering owner lives within a jurisdiction of the municipality that already has a UTV ordinance, they must register that UTV with that municipality. I'll entertain a motion for that to be added to our.
I'll make the motion to add that verbiage into the draft that you just discussed.
I have a first by Mr. Wilson. Any seconds?
I'll second it.
Okay. Any discussion on that particular verbiage to be added to the language of our draft? No discussion. All right, we have a first, we have a second. All those in favor of adding that particular language, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? None, it carried. One of the other added ideas that I had in here was that if the registering owner lives outside a jurisdiction that doesn't have a UT ordinance, like say, for instance, if someone doesn't live in the city of Dixon, they would live in the confines of Lee County, and that if they don't live in a jurisdiction, we need to give them direction on where to register that vehicle. So I would entertain a motion. If the registering owner lives outside a jurisdiction of a municipality that has a UTV ordinance, or within a municipality that does not have a UTV ordinance, then the registering order must register with the Lee County and pay the fees required. I entertain a motion for that language.
I'll make the motion as per our discussion.
Okay, I have a first by Mr. Wilson. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Casey Considine seconds that. Any discussion on the verbiage of that? Okay, I have a first, I have a second, no discussions. All those in favor of that, adding it to the current draft, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now, I also thought that, let's say we have, like we want to recognize the city of Franklin Grove or the city of Paw Paw, where they operate on our roadways. I want to recognize those. I don't necessarily think that we need to make them pay to operate on county roads. So they pay their fees, Dixon pays their fees, Paw Paw pays their fees, Amboy pays their fees. But I still would like them to know, those operators to know what Lee County's ordinance is and what our rules are. So I'm still thinking that they need to register with us, but yet they don't have to pay the fees, and like we would waive the fees, but I want them to have a sign off that because like Dixon, I don't think they require them to have highway tires, but I believe we have in our ordinance highway tires. So I want them to sign off that they received a copy of that, of our ordinance, but yet waive those fees. Any thoughts on that before I make another suggestion of a motion? Any thoughts of that?
So one suggestion from myself is that it's great that these people have already thought out in front of the county and have ordinances in place and fees in place for this.
Mhm.
I think what we should do is put a time limit that within the next 5 years that all the county in 5 years, all the townships and everything will need to abide by and register through the county of Lee, as opposed to keep registering through their individual towns and what have you. It's great that they've adopted ordinances, but I think we need to put a time limit or sooner or later it'll be statewide.
Right.
So
I mean,
I hear what you're saying, Tom, but we don't have any jurisdiction over the incorporated areas in Lee County. We can put it out there, but we can't really regulate what happens in the city of Dixon or Franklin Grove or nowhere.
well, 100% agree, Casey, but as soon as they ride on one of our county roads and they are out of their jurisdiction, then it is our concern. That's where I'm getting at, is they
Right.
can ride, that's what I'm getting at.
So you're saying essentially start out waiving the fees, but at some timeline, 5 years from now, whatever the timeline is, then suddenly they have to actually register and pay the fees.
so they would have to register with Dixon, but then they turn around and they still would have to drive or pay the fees for Lee County, is what you're saying.
If they want to ride on Lee County roads.
County road. That's just a suggestion.
That's it, okay.
I mean, we're gonna get into a jurisdictional thing where
Yep. I hear you.
what the police are gonna be going, you're living in Franklin Grove, but what are you doing in Paw Paw? I mean, they're
Right.
just,
Right.
I think it's the county of Lee is the way I look at it.
Well, again, like you said, legislation will come later on. What's to say that we couldn't, rather than add that language in there now, 5 years from now, we just add that, we'll just see how our
See how it
ordinance
goes.
is going.
I agree.
Absolutely. Okay.
I think it's good conversation. I think if you're going to waive the fee, then they should have to, whatever municipality that they're registered with, provide that to the counties, like their sticker information, so we can keep it
Sure,
there and we have that on file. Like, hey, yeah, you're registered with Dixon, your license number is 149 or whatever it is, and we
I
put
think
that in there, waive the fee.
I think on the application that when we put their sticker on it, we have a box or whoever's going to be in charge of creating that application, because I'm sure there's going to have to be a committee for that, to create that application. I think that application needs to put on their fee waived because of this check mark, and then Dixon, and this is their license for that year, where they show proof of that. So, I guess that flows into my next suggestion of a entertaining a motion would be entertain a motion if a registered UTV owner has registered with another municipality and has paid their fees and is planning on utilizing Lee County roadways, they must register with Lee County indicating they have received a copy of the Lee County ordinance. The fees will be waived after showing proof of paid registration within their municipality. I'll entertain a motion for that language or something similar. Okay. If a registered UTV owner has registered with another municipality, AKA Dixon, and has paid their fees and is planning on utilizing Lee County roadways, they must register with Lee County indicating they have received a copy of the Lee County ordinance. The fees will be waived after showing proof of paid registration within the municipality. My thought process on this particular motion would be so that way Dixon has their rules, we have ours. Dixon doesn't require highway tires, we do. So before they operate on Lee County roadways, I want them to know that they need to have highway tires.
And
So that's the-
acknowledge that they've seen the information that
And that-
says they need
that
to
they
have.
are registering with us, thus they turn around and we waive the fees because they have now registered with us as well.
Why are we concerned about having them signing off if they've seen what our requirements are? Anytime there's a new law that's passed, we don't go around the state having any citizen signing off saying they acknowledge that there's a new law.
I guess I just wanted them to acknowledge with that registration that they know that Lee County has their rules as well.
Would it be acceptable if we went to Dixon and all the townships that have their passes and give them a copy of ours and say, in order for you to get a pass from Franklin Grove, you've got to read the county ordinances as well, the Franklin Grove ordinances. Or the city of Dixon has to give you the county ordinances. So when you get a city of Dixon license, you've read the county ordinance already.
As well, if you're planning on.
Because we were going to get into a nightmare of who's going to keep track of all this stuff.
Right. Well, like I said, the idea was just to register that vehicle with Lee County. And whether it be just so they had it. That was just my thought process, is that they know what our rules are. And I couldn't think of any other way to do that unless they have them registered with us. So that way, down the road, if there's any legality that, why were you operating our roadway? That's not permitted.
So
Well,
Jack,
got-
would we honor only in the county of Lee, any municipality in the county of Lee? So only the ones like Dixon? Because what happens if somebody comes from outside of Lee County and says, hey, I've already paid to have a sticker in Tampico and now I want to, ride in Lee County for free? Are we gonna allow that? Or Wisconsin, where do we draw the line? Or do we say, if you want to use our roads in Lee County, you pay the fee and you get the sticker for Lee County?
And I guess that's just if they're coming from Tampico, or not Tampico, because I know they don't.
I just threw it anywhere.
Yeah, a Wisconsin address, at least they would receive a copy of our ordinance. And then I think we had discussed this in the past, that we would allow these other entities to, we would recognize that. But here, we're actually registering their vehicle. Now they've got a copy of our ordinance so that they can follow that. That's not just Dixon, but like you said, like another state, if we're going to honor that. That's I want the public to know that Lee County rules are different than Wisconsin's, different from Dixon from Amboy. Franklin Grove allows golf carts. Well, we're not allowing golf carts on county roads. So, I want our ordinances I want them to receive a copy of that. That's why I'm suggesting this motion to indicate that.
Isn't it as simple as a waiver of fees for anybody within the county? anywhere within Lee County any municipality in Lee County that already has a UTV ordinance, if you sign up for our ordinance, we will have that reciprocal agreement that will not charge you the fee, but you still have to sign whatever document anybody else would have and get a sticker.
Correct, yes, we'd waive those fees. And I believe that's what my language is, that we would waive those fees.
Can we require these UTV owners, registered owners that from other jurisdictions be equipped with the equipment that we have in a Lee County ordinance?
And this motion would make that. In other words, they couldn't operate on our roadways unless they were, had the highway tires and all the other requirements that we require. That's why the idea of that particular suggestion of the motion.
But is the motion only for the reciprocal agreement, only for any incorporated area in Lee County that currently has a UTV ordinance? We'll honor that, because I don't think if it's outside the county, we want to honor that. I think I'd be willing to say if you've paid the fee in Dixon, then you don't have to pay the fee for the county. But if you're not from Lee County, then I think you should have to pay to use our roadways, regardless
Nope.
if you registered somewhere else.
Personally, I have no qualm about them having to pay if they live outside the jurisdiction. I just know that came up in a conversation earlier in our discussion of allowing other UTV owners to come in. So I personally have no problem. I'd say pay them, but I think within Lee County, we should waive the fees.
I don't think we're gonna be having much traffic from Wisconsin if we're requiring road tires, just for the record. No one will be coming down here to put road tires on to come use our roads. So I don't think it's gonna be an issue.
So we could just say that we waive the fees from within Lee County. And if they want to come down, say from here, they need to register with us and pay a fee.
Yeah, register with us and follow the ordinance as it's written. I mean, that's pretty much what we're asking them to do. And if they don't want to get DOT approved tires, and then I guess they don't want to use the roads.
Yeah.
And they won't. All right.
So, Charlie, do I need the language on that? You have a copy of it? Do you understand it now, or is there a better way of making that motion or making that?
I understand it. There's I guess, a little bit of confusion with circular logic on how we're doing this with, the fees in the first paragraph that you're talking about, and then the fees that if you're outside of the jurisdiction or you're in a jurisdiction that doesn't have UTVs, it's almost like we're saying it's okay for you to use your UTVs in that jurisdiction as long as you register with Lee County.
Well,
Then
that's
you move to the next one, which you're talking about right now, which is they registered, paid fees, and then requiring this documentation to go along with them. I still think that maybe we're getting in the weeds, making this a little bit more than it needs to be, in that anytime there's a new law or a change in law or an ordinance or anything that's enacted, there is no defense for mistake of law. Everyone is presumed to know what the law is because everybody is on notice.
I see. Okay.
So I think you might get yourself a little bit too much in the weeds by saying that everybody's required to get a copy of it. If you want to do it, that's fine, as long as you get reciprocal agreements with all these different municipalities, townships, whatever, that say, yeah, we'll do that, but.
Because like, for instance, Nelson, they don't have an ordinance. But let's say that Nelson says, yeah, I'll agree with Lee County's ordinance. And then when they sign up for us and we mark Nelson as being an area that you can drive around in, as long, then they can operate, once they pass an ordinance that they're allowing, that they'll recognize Lee County's ordinance, because they would have to do that themselves.
So Nelson's not gonna, just as your example, Nelson's not going to have their own ordinance in place that would be reflective of what the Lee County ordinance would be. They're just saying, feel free to drive through here.
Right. Without having to register their vehicle or anything like that, they'll recognize. That I don't know. I'm just throwing the suggestion that they don't have to collect fees. They don't have to do nothing. They'll just allow the UTVs after they obviously pass an ordinance allowing Lee County's ordinance to operate on the roadways,
Sure.
similar to a township road. You know, that they're, you know, the same language of that ordinance they would have to adopt in order. Otherwise, people, you can't drive to Nelson unless we get that agreement. So that's that.
Jack,
That was the thought process.
is it fair to say that you weren't looking for just the acknowledgement of our ordinance, but you were also looking to use this as a mechanism disseminating what are the county roads versus the other roads? So you want people to acknowledge that they are aware of what's county roads and what we're approving and what we're not. Is that also a part of this acknowledgement of having them kind of sign off?
Well, that was another part of, like, later on, was that in the application process that they have received a copy of the map of what roads ways to. So I think that would be on the application process that I have also received, or I've been told to go to this website to download a map of what roadways are allowed and which city villages are also be allowed to be traveled on once we get that agreement. Because, you know, whether Torma has impacted any other townships, we may lose or we may gain more townships. Same thing, we may add city villages. Like right now, I don't think Compton has a UTV ordinance, or West Brooklyn, but I would be reaching out to them. Hey, we passed this ordinance. Would you be willing to allow our vehicles to operate on a roadway? And you'd have to pass an ordinance, allow our registered vehicles to operate on your roadways. You wouldn't have to collect any fees. We're going to be doing that. Whereas, you know, that's why I mentioned in here too that that depending on what municipality, what jurisdiction you live on, that has the ordinances.
So maybe for purpose of the ordinance, maybe Charlie was going as for the ordinance itself, we can just say they must register with us. And then you can say your reciprocal agreement to waive fees. But then your application could be that little checklist of, yes, I've received this map of where our roads are. Yes, I've acknowledged that I've received our ordinance and I understand its rules. You know, maybe that's part of the application or the registration process.
Right. So if we would just kind of change the wording of this motion that all UTV operators, whether you're registered, must register as well with Lee County, and fees will be waived if paid.
If they were paid to a municipality that has a UTV ordinance within Lee County boundaries.
Right. So now it's just a matter of putting that language.
Right. So are you comfortable with that? I mean, just address the whole acknowledgement part as part of the application and not part of the ordinance? Yeah.
Okay. So in the application, we're still going to, on the ordinance, are we still going to state that you need to register with Lee County?
Yes, I think in the ordinance, it needs to be clear that they need to register with Lee County.
So if you're going to operate within the roads, on the roadways of Lee County, you still need to register with Lee County. If fees have been paid from another municipalities, it'll be waived with Lee County. Good? Kind of?
Sure.
I'm okay. Were you the one that's gonna have to type this all up too?
Wait, what?
He's like,
I don't want to jump ahead of where we're at right now to, I think it was the second from the bottom, or maybe the bottom one that you had there with the driving at your own risk. But I mean, we're talking about fees. We're talking about how it's going to work with reciprocal agreements. Are we just going to ignore like the Torma stuff and the liability issues that we've been bringing up in the past and just jump right into fees?
well, I mean, again, that's part of the application that I thought I would add that in there too, but I believe I found in our current ordinance that there was language in the liability part that you're not holding Lee County liable for it. I didn't find that until later today because I thought it was in there, but I wanted it to be on the application. But I think in the application, we'll use the verbiage from the ordinance as it is. So rather than the driving at your own risk type of deal. So I believe the ordinance has that language already built into it, that I don't think we necessarily need to put in there and drive at your own risk, but
Do you have a copy of the ordinance on you? I just don't have a working copy in front of me.
I don't, I can email it again to you.
Back and email.
You're gonna email it to him? It's the 111.
Well, I feel Tormer's a major issue here, regardless how this goes. Until we find out where litigation issues are gonna be. I just can't, right now at this point, with the way Tormer's dealing with this, you know,
Well, what my conversation with Torma, just to kind of touch on that again, I brought up, what their concern was, and their concern is that, we're changing the language 65 inches and more, whereas the state law says 64 inches. So this is where we're getting cute with the language of our ordinance to kind of bypass that. We're kind of creating our own vehicle in a way. But we're still trying to use the ordinance system, in that particular section. And he says, but the law doesn't say 65 inches.
but under the current law, of course, the posted is the maximum is 35 miles per hour, correct?
Yeah, the current law
But that
says
law,
that,
that law covers all this state law, correct?
the
So we're actually, what we're doing, we're changing the law in favor of what we want, basically.
right, we're creating our own vehicle,
Okay.
pretty much.
We're trailblazers.
We're trailblazing, as
Mm.
Charlie calls it. So, but that 35 mile an hour issue deals with vehicles that are 64 inches or less.
Correct.
And so our vehicles are 65 inches or less. So
That
that's
would allow vehicles to go 55 miles per hour.
correct.
Where's the,
That language.
yeah, because I guess the part that I'm talking about that was concerning to me was at the bottom of the first page, if we are all looking at the same document. The county board has determined that public safety will not be jeopardized or compromised by the use of non-highway trial vehicles on roadways under the jurisdiction of County of Lee under the terms and conditions herein after set forth. Because that Torma document that you were referencing before talks about safety studies or what have you.
Right. I talked with Mr. Anderson of our highway department, and unfortunately, the ordinance that grants this piece doesn't give specifics or parameters of what a traffic study would consist of. Just basically it says that we shall consider the flow of traffic, the patterns. It just says to consider it. Doesn't say, that you have to have non-gravel roads. Doesn't have to have, the slope or the crown of the road has to be this degree or whatnot. Doesn't have any of those kind of things, what roadways you're going to be traveling on. It just says you have to consider the traffic pattern and the type of traffic going on those roadways. So that's why the transportation committee, they took account, or they discussed in detail, and I believe Casey was part of that committee as well. And a recommendation was made and passed that as long as they follow our ordinance, it should be safe. So
mean, we discussed it in detail, and that's what we determined. I mean, obviously, there's the caveat was that if everybody on the road is following the rules of the road, that you'll be safe. You know, there's nothing to say that if you're driving safely, that someone else doesn't do something inappropriately, but that could happen with anything. And then the other thing is there's acts of God, right? Like if a deer runs out in front of you, that's unforeseeable. It could happen. I mean, it's an accident. That's a risk you take when you drive it. You know that's an opportunity that something could happen.
And then if another vehicle swerved in front of the UTV, that's wouldn't necessarily be the UTV driver's fault. It would be, more likely, I guess they would be at fault because they're on the roadway at some point. I mean, there's that, I don't know what they call it, but there's a degree of fault just because you're there.
Tributary negligence?
What's that?
Tributary negligence? Is that what you're?
Yeah, that legal word verbiage. I think they'd have a better chance in a UTV than they would a motorcycle. A little bit better chance, UTV has somewhat of a roll bar. They have harnesses. Motorcycles, they don't have harnesses. They're. So
Yeah. So Jack, just to try to clarify, we're discussing what are we trying to resolve here?
Well, I guess we did jump ahead a little bit, but I'm just trying to get to the fact that we want to recognize these like Dixon, Amboy, those ordinances or those registration permits. I don't want them to have to pay a fee for Lee County, but I want them to at least acknowledge that that they registered with Lee County and they understand our rules. And
Yeah,
that's where I was going with that.
I think it's as simple as, I mean, the whole acknowledgement and all that, it's your responsibility to know the law, to Charlie's point. But if you want to use the county roads, you need to sign up just like you would if you didn't sign up in Dixon or somewhere else. You still need to sign up, register. The only difference is we're going to waive the fee. That's the only difference. The way I see it, like you're still going to sign up, pay, do exactly what you would do if you didn't pay for Dixon or somewhere else. And the only difference is we're not going to charge you the money. If you're from out of the county, we're going to charge you the money and you're going to sign up. It's the same as anything, I think.
All right. But we just need a motion to that verbiage to be voted on and added to the ordinance. And I'm just trying to find the right language for that. That all, if you're going to operate on the Lee County roadways, you need to register with Lee County. Fees are waived if you registered with another municipality
Within Lee County.
within Lee County. Yeah. Might have to. So I guess I will entertain a motion for that to be added as well. Or another language, something that would cover that.
I'm not sure if you're getting this, but he's begging for some feedback, a motion, a modification to the motion.
Right.
Somebody say something to him.
I just want.
I'm in agreement. So, I mean, I don't know the exact verbiage that we want to see in the motion, but we all understand what we're going for. So, I mean, I make a motion that we approve it the way that Jack just stated it.
Good, there you go. Easy.
I got one. I got motion by Casey. I need a second.
Are you just making him suffer to make him suffer?
Or we can come back to it another day.
We're trying to get a motion, then we have discussion.
We can get a second. We
I'll
can make
second
it. Okay, who's gonna second it?
Yeah,
Okay,
Let's
we can
discuss it.
still discuss it. Yes.
Okay, good.
All right.
So people from Franklin Grove, people from Paw Paw, people from wherever else in this county are getting a permit to drive and they don't have off-road tires.
They don't have off-road tires, correct?
Okay, they got a permit to ride the county road, but they go on a county road, they gotta have street legal tires. Is that correct?
That is correct. If they want to
So we're
operate,
not, so we are making them change essentially what they're.
if they want to operate on the county roadways, yes.
Okay.
And they'd have to get a permit. They'd have to register with us if they want to operate on our roadways. They would have to also register with us, but they would not have to pay their fees. Our fees, $50. You know, but if they want to just drive in Paw Paw, they can just drive in Paw Paw and not come on county roads.
Right, and realistically, that's what we're saying here is the only difference is we're gonna waive the fee. If you want to use a county road, you're gonna have to follow the county ordinance. It's that simple, like, in my
Exactly.
opinion, that's the way I'm looking at it, is if you're gonna use the county, this is the ordinance we have. And if you want to operate a vehicle, whether or not you pay a fee or not, I don't really care. I'm trying to make it, if we require them to buy road tires to be on the county, at least they're not paying the fee, so they can have more money to get a set of tires. And you can get some pretty aggressive road tires that they could use wherever they want. Like, I know plenty of people that have tires because they don't want to chew them up because they ride them on the road all the time. So they want DOT tires and they still kind of want some aggressive tread. So I don't really see it being an issue, but I just want to get the ordinance passed. So, I mean,
So Tom, is your objection the road tires required?
I have no objection.
Okay.
I'm just saying, we've got people already riding on the roads, obviously, so.
Yeah, that's the idea, is to make it legal, at least, you know, control it some way, form. That's the whole idea of this. Otherwise, we just, you know.
yeah, I
So
mean,
I've
I guess the only reason I made the motion is because I want to move this along, and I really don't care if we waive the fee or not. Like, so we can have the discussion. To me, the ordinance is what the ordinance is, and if we want to waive the fee for people within Lee County, we'll pass this. If we don't, we won't. But we're talking about a fee for people in Dixon and other places that already have UTV ordinances. If we think they should still pay the county fee, then vote no. And if you think they
Tom, do you
should,
think, are you suggesting they should pay the fee? Is that your thoughts?
No, I just want to make it as user-friendly as possible for everyone in the county and that
Right.
everyone have multiple
Well, it would. be.
laws and stuff. And I think we should incorporate something that we can, in 5 years, this is the way it's going to be, or 3 years
Right.
or whatever. And this is the way it's going to be for everybody.
Right.
So that's just my way of thinking.
Well,
I agree with you, Tom. I think that the challenge is that, like, when you're in Dixon or you're in a smaller town, they set the speed limit at a lot lower. And that's the caveat. And if we're going to allow the speed limit to not have to be posted on all our roads, then there's certain things that we have to do in order to make sure that the vehicles are as safe as possible. And whether or not we agree with it or not, I mean, it's the way that we're able to make this ordinance go, I guess.
all right. Any more discussion? Yeah, we have first, we have a second. We've had discussion. All those in favor of this motion, signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, motion carried. Those are the key things I had. There's a couple other things that I think we could add on to the application process, but I'll deal with that with the application committee. Whoever that's going to be, I'll put my 2 cents in on that. Is there any other language that somebody has an idea or to put this on? Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Until it comes back to committee.
What?
Until it comes back to committee.
Till it comes back to committee.
You got to redress something else.
Something else. Okay. Now, I believe that we need to send this back to public safety. We have a motion to move this back to public safety with the changes. I'll entertain a motion for that.
I'll make the motion.
Tom makes that motion. Have a second.
I'll second it.
Casey seconds it. Any discussion on that?
Yes, I still think, gentlemen, this issue should be thought out more about the liability issues on this. I get Torma, whether you want to listen to them or not, but they are not the only organization that is opposing this. I mean, there's numerous. We got the state police, the Secretary of State Police, the Farm Bureau, National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. You got the Consumer Product Safety Administration. And I'm not saying I'm for or against what they're saying, but it comes down to this litigation issue that I think we should really get resolved or wait till it's resolved with the civil liability, because regardless if it goes one way or the other, one civil suit in this county is going to tie up a lot of revenue. It's going to tie up Mr. Booster's office when we can sit back and wait and see what the state's going to do. I know everybody, and I understand we need to get something rolling here. But on the other hand, we've got a state law that requires, and we're just going outside the perimeters as trailblazing, but we've got a law there. And when this initially idea started in 2017, I remember when it was first brought up, all anybody wanted actually was a UTV designated route. So UTV owners, operators could travel from one town to another in Lee County. And I'm just saying, under Tormer, I said, that's free advice. That is free advice, I think, that we're getting from them. And we should heed what they're trying to say. And what they're basically saying too is see what happens with legislation. And Tormer, my understanding, is not against UTV. But I think they're forewarning us there's a possibility of litigation, and whether it's 1 in 2 or 1 in 100 is that one chance that could happen. And let's face it, people, we're sitting here, and there's many counties in this state waiting for to see what we do in Lee County, which if I was the other counties, I would too, because we're going to have all the kinks worked out. And I'm going back to the issue in Mercer County where they tried this and it was a nightmare for them. And I just don't want to see Lee County tied up in the same mess that these other Mercer County was. And I just think we should listen to what's going on in our legislature. If they make it a law, then hey, there's no choice. We have no, we can go with it or not. But I think let them people make the decision, because I think there's enough people in the state that probably want this, that they'll probably get it done. That's my feelings right now. It's just not going to happen right away, but it will happen. It is election year, as we all know, and everybody's sitting back. We all know that how that goes, but I still think let our legislators work on this, and they'll fall under, the revised statutes for vehicle statutes. That's all, sir.
Thank you, Keen. Any comments on? I don't want to go through, that's why I'm saying, we're trying to do our due diligence as best we can. What I believe the public people are wanting. I mean, there are some out there that are not for this. There are some that are for this. So we have a first, we have a second. Any more discussion before we vote on sending it back to public safety? All right, all those in favor of sending it to public safety, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
We have three yeses and 1 no. All right, we have no executive session. As of right now, this committee is done with until it gets thrown back at me or us. So, motion for adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Keno second, Wilson first, Keen second. All those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.